Good morning.
And we're on.
Hey, good morning.
Look at these beautiful faces.
The three amigos back together.
Three amigos. What a great movie that was.
We're the three best friends that anyone could have.
Three best friends that anyone could have. I'm kind of blurry. Oh well, I don't care.
The wolf pack is back together.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing. Yeah. What other?
What's the buzz?
Examples.
54.
We're on 54.
Wow.
Yeah, featuring the Doctor.
Yeah.
Brady Benton.
That ought to be
BB.
his name.
Yeah. All right.
Welcome to all you buzzards out there.
Is it buzzards like the bird or buzzers?
I think
Buzzers?
buzzer
I don't like
sounds
buzzers.
a little.
I like buzzies.
The buzzies?
Yeah, the buzzies.
Okay.
buzzies.
I can go with buzzies.
The busy
Like buzzies?
buzzies.
Yeah.
I'm in on buzzies. Doctor, would you like to weigh in?
What's your vote?
I don't like buzzards. I think that's third of the three. Buzzers or buzzies?
That's a terrible animal.
Buzzies, because buzzers sounds too much like buzzards.
Okay.
True.
The buzzies.
The
People
buzzies.
might get that
Like it.
confused.
I like it.
Yeah. The buzzies.
Hey,
Welcome,
buzzies.
buzzies. One of our buzzies has something for us. And
What is it?
I don't know. She said she had to wait because you weren't there. She said, I don't want to give it to you. I want to give it to both of you. And you were mysteriously absent this weekend.
I was down in Florida. Getting out of the way of a hurricane.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was special. My home pastor was retiring after 31 years at our church. He's the reason my family is saved. You know, he's the reason I'm in ministry. You know, when I had my dream that I should be a pastor, he was my first phone call, and that I got asked to go down there and speak at the ceremony on Saturday night, and I told that story. That morning, honestly, when I called him, I was like, I really wanted him to talk me out of it. Like when I called him, I was like, hey, I had a dream to be a pastor. I wanted him to be like, oh, that's cute.
Like Pastor Mark when he told me. Like Pastor Mark's response to me.
Oh, you're going to bring that up?
Huh. You. Interesting. Hey, wait. I have a question. When you, Brady, came to Pastor Justin and said, I think I'm feeling the calling to be a pastor.
Yeah.
What was his response to you?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think
I don't remember it, so you can say
I can say whatever I want.
No, I'm teasing.
No, it was, I believe it was, we should really think about this, because I don't often have people come into my office with those thoughts or with those feelings or like with the desire to do that. So yeah. It was like, we should look into this. We should think about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I remember it too. I remember you were very much, kind of questioning, do you think I should take this opportunity? What do you want to do with it? And yeah, I think I said something to that effect of like, look, I don't get people in my office every day saying I think I should be a pastor. Yeah. Like, definitely let's go down that path. And I think you were still trying to feel that out, and so that's why we did that. Like 50% of your time still in optometry and 50% coming to work. And I think that worked out great.
Yeah.
Because you got to see what church work was like. We got to feel you out, and I mean, we threw you in right away.
Because Ben was leaving like right as I came on, so it was like, all right.
I mean, like it was like, hey, you're starting a Bible study next week, so
yeah, right. And I remember one of the guys, Bob, he's on our Bible study most mornings, and like a month in, he was like, you know what? When you started this, I was like, I don't think this is going to go very well, because he was kind of sad about losing Ben, but it was like,
yeah. No, I remember you sitting down and talking about that, and I was like, I see potential, and I'm always down for giving somebody a chance, and you blew it out of the water, man.
Wow, thanks. Well, yeah, started there though. Thanks for having the faith to get it.
Aaron, you want to tell your story?
I think I told it.
Well, what was giving you the tug towards being a pastor?
Well, Sean was always encouraging me.
Yes.
In fact, he was probably the second most instrumental person in just getting me in ministry, period. So, yeah, so he was like, come on, let's do it. And he's like an annoying little gnat in a good way.
No, when he's got something he's going for, yeah.
Yep.
He's relentless.
Yeah. So, I prayed about it and talked about it with Sarah and just kind of back and forth and, yeah. And really one of the things I was driving was just the need.
Yeah.
As you guys both know, like the shortage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I sat down with Pastor Mark and I was like, huh.
For those of you that aren't watching, like if you know Pastor Mark, he is exactly doing the facial expressions. I feel like I'm sitting next to Mark right now.
Yeah.
But honestly, yeah, that was what I kind of expected when I called Pastor Z. Was
he your first call or was your dad?
No, he was my first call.
Okay. Did you at any point in time during that call, I was going to ask you, did you at any point in time during that call say, will you call my dad and tell him, please?
No, he ended the call with, now go tell your dad.
Okay.
And I said, well, I actually called him last night and that did not go very well because I told him I flunked out of school. And he was like, just call your dad and tell him.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. But yeah, I expected his response to be something like that. Like, well, that's a nice idea.
That's cute.
Yeah, that's cute.
Adorable. You want to be a pastor, huh? Oh.
Yeah. That's really, and I told that story that I think part of me really wanted him to kind of talk me out of it.
Yeah.
And his immediate response was like, that's amazing. We're going to have somebody from seminary call you. Like, I was like, whoa. I was the one pumping the brakes. I was like, whoa. Like, we should pray about this. And I remember he said, hey, I never got a dream. Like,
wow.
He's like, if you had a dream and God told you to do this, you need to do this. Mm-hmm. And then I said the words that he said to me. He said, Buzz, you have the chance to make a difference for eternity. Let me back that up. He said, you have the chance to change someone's destination for all of eternity. And there's no greater calling than that.
True.
And I was like, whoa. And he's like, you absolutely need to do this.
Do you think it's maybe time for you to start doing that then?
Making a difference?
Yeah. I mean, how long have you been doing this?
Still waiting for that.
Still waiting.
Yeah. No, a question I was going to ask too is, so like that happened, like that moment, but then there was a lot that had to happen. Like you went to Concordia.
Oh, yeah.
Was there doubts along the way?
Oh, 100%.
As you got into it.
Because so I got the call, or I got the dream, the calling in. And, yeah, that Saturday, Dad picked me up to take me home because I had flunked out of school. So that was a Thursday night. Yeah. And so I'm heading home. And so I it was in the middle of the semester.
Okay.
And so I got a job at the Shrimp Shack, and I was working like full time there. And I enrolled because I waited to go to Austin until the fall because it was in the fall that I flunked out. And I waited. So in the spring, I took just some gen eds at the local community college just to get a bunch of, easy classes out of the way. And so I had I don't know, what is that, 8 months to think about it before I went to Austin.
Yeah.
And definitely there was times of man, that was just my imagination. What am I doing? I was at the Shrimp Shack working and people were like, oh, so what do you, I was like, I'm getting ready to go to school to be a pastor. And they were like, what? And, so there wasn't a lot of affirmation, from people around me. I can say it now. My mom and stepdad they were against. They were like, no. This is ridiculous. You partied your way out of UCF. There's no way. They couldn't believe that Dad was supportive of this, and but he was the only one. And Pastor Z, they were in my corner, and they were like, "You're gonna do this." And but it wasn't until I pulled up to Austin because I had never seen the school. I just knew in the dream he said, "Go to Concordia, Austin," and so it wasn't until I pulled up at Austin. And the parking lot we pulled up into was the exact picture from my dream. It was the gymnasium with the dormitory in the background. And that was when I was like, this is real. Like, this is happening.
Wow.
And so there was 8 months of kind of waffling through that. And yeah, I think I talked myself in and out of it about 100 times. So, yeah.
And here we are.
And here we are.
Would you say that you were fearful?
Very. I mean, honestly,
What would you say was your greatest fear in pursuing that call?
I don't know what the greatest one is. I could tell you the top 3 probably. One, that I was going to get exposed. That like, that in some way, shape, or form, like I wasn't holy enough. I wasn't devout enough. I mean, like when I got to Austin, I was so far behind all the other pre-sim guys. Like,
Right.
they were like, in Hezekiah 3, and I was like, what?
Like, how do you spell that again?
Yeah, I was like,
Who?
like, and then especially in the,
Gesundheit.
yeah, in the Lutheran realm, they're talking about Walther, and they're talking about Melanchthon, and and I'm like, I don't even know these names you're saying, and they're like, they're the forefathers of our synod, and I'm like, my biggest fear scholastically was I'm going to get exposed. And then my biggest fear personally was I really was fearful I was going to have a boring life. Like I did not see the life of a pastor as something exciting to live. I was like, and honestly part of my life was like, what kind of woman am I going to, like, who wants to marry a pastor? Like how boring is she going to be? That was, like, I was just like, this is going to be like a pretty boring life of no fun.
And when that came to realization that it actually is a super boring life, how did you adjust?
And that's the beauty. Like, I love my life. Like, Joe and I got to get away, for this weekend down to Florida and spend a little time. And we celebrated our anniversary late, and so at dinner, we were talking about it, and I was like, 13 years, and I was like, God, I'm so blessed. Like, I love my life. It has not been boring. I love my job. Like, it was not what I expected. Not at all. It's so, every day is a challenge. Every day has its, and I like challenges. I would be bored out of my mind if every day was the same day. And every day has its new challenges and ups and downs. And I love this job.
Never-ending board meetings.
We did have a marathon one last night, but I mean, even that, like, I got home and I was like, still, like, I had to watch like 2 shows. I was so like amped up still. Yeah. Because I love those meetings. I mean, because that's where truly decisions are happening. Like 4 hours of people talking, and and then we're like this and that. I get jazzed up by that. So, yeah, I had to wind down when I got home.
When you look back to that season of life, obviously that was a lot of uncertainty for you, a lot of unknowing, not sure what to expect, fearful of people doubting you, fearful of what your dad would say, maybe even fearful what your pastor would say, fearful about your ability to navigate your way through school, and like you said, being exposed. That's a lot of fear stacked on top of fear, stacked on top of fear, stacked on top of anxiety, stacked on top of worry. When you look back now, can you even put yourself in that mindset of how afraid, and that's the word I'll use, how afraid you were for all of that?
I think, and I want to say, truly, and I don't just say this because you're a part of the team. I thought Brady's sermon on fear was the best sermon on fear I've ever heard. I think because it came from such a personal place that, and we talked about it last night at the board meeting. People were just going on about it. that I think it was so personal, and your vulnerability is what really sold that message to people.
Wow.
And I love what you did with it, where you were like, look, at the root of everything is, these core things, and they do play into those, and I love that. And I would say, like, in that season of life, and even today, I have my own things that kind of challenge me, but like fear and anxiety has never been a big challenge for me, and I think it's because of my incredible arrogance and ignorance. Like, I have always been, like, I was the kid in school that, like, it was like, oh, the presentation's today? I can figure this out. And I could just hop up and, like, just wing it, like, so, like, the getting up and, like, kind of that stuff, I don't know, like, I've just always had this probably a unhealthy dose of arrogance and ignorance of, even when I was in school, I was like, it'll work out, I'll figure it out, and at the end of the day, if it's a C, it's a C, like, I don't know. And it's funny, a lot of my closer friends were the other type, where, like, if they did not get an A on every test, they were anxious, they were fearful, they were studying 12 hours for a final, and I'm like, I think I have enough to pass, like, I'll give it a good 3 hours and call it a day, like, and I think it serves me well in some instances, but I also think definitely it's a hindrance in a lot of instances too. And so I loved listening to the message on Sunday, because I think my wife is very much like Brady. And after listening, she was like, yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. That's, and so it was neat to hear your message and just get a deeper insight into you. And I think everyone else that struggles in that way. But I'll say it's not like there's never been moments of fear in my life. And my response to fear is usually shut down. Like I just pull the plug. Like when it does build up, I just go, like, well, I'm just not going to do anything. Like, let's see what happens. Like, you can't get me now if I don't even show up. Like, you can't, like, that's my, and I see that in one of my kids a lot. And I think that's a fault of mine, is I don't like to do anything unless I know I'm going to be good at it. I don't like to do, and I can usually maneuver myself in ways that I don't really get exposed, Like I'll kind of find a fox sly way out of things that are going to expose me. So I don't really have a lot of fear towards things, because I'm like, well, I'll just turn the tables on this and do it that way, kind of thing. So it's very rare that I experience that kind of fear or anxiousness. And when I do, I shut down. I just stop. I'm like, well, I'm going to show this fear who's boss. I'm not even going to do it.
Let me do it. Show up.
Problem solved.
Take that.
Nothing to be afraid of if I'm not there.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Brady, what about you? When you look back at some of those more fearful times in your life, and if you just think on that for a moment, of something that was just all consuming, couldn't sleep at night, full of anxiety, not sure how you were going to get through it or what was going to be the outcome. When you look back at that, can you even place yourself there? Can you even get in that mindset of what that was like?
Yeah. I mean, I think, like what Pastor is saying, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum of, like, that's been a big part of my life. So it's not that hard for me to imagine what anxiety and
2 hours ago.
Yeah. Well, and I'll admit, like, Sunday morning, like, I woke up, my heart was just racing. I was like, okay, I got, with the baptisms, that was on my mind, because that was kind of my first time of doing that in front of that kind of crowd and stuff, and didn't want to mess that up, because that's a huge moment for those families. And then just, the preaching aspect of, I feel like every week, it really is just a struggle of like, man, I hope God puts something in there to talk about that I can latch onto and that's meaningful to people. And so, yeah, I mean, as recently as just this weekend, I was feeling that stress and anxiety. And I think for me, a big thing is I've learned just do it. And like, I usually come out on the other side. Like, I usually like, hey, I'm still here. Like, it didn't do as much to me as I was afraid it might do. And I found that that's like, I don't know if exposure therapy is kind of like, like just jump in and do it and see what happens. And I think that's kind of the technique I've taken in my life, is like, just give it a shot. And I think just as faith has grown, like I have a lot more trust that God's going to hold me up. Like the thing that was cool about the sermon is like, I was like, all of these things that I'm talking about are things that I've been trying to practice for like the last several years, of like, just like, hey, it doesn't matter as much as you think it does. Like I get these things built up in my mind, like, but what if this doesn't work out? And what if this doesn't work out? It's like, it doesn't matter really, like in the grand scheme of things. And so I think the biggest thing for me is just having that kind of eternal mindset rather than just like the temporal of like, hey, Jesus is coming back one day, and like if I screw up this sermon on Sunday, like his grace is still there for me. It's just like putting things in perspective of like, it's not as big of a deal as you think it is. Sure. And that's been hugely freeing for me. I know that's not easy to do. And so I don't want to say like, just do this and you're fine, but I think it's a process. But man, that's been a source of freedom for me in my life, big time. So just stepping back and perspective on what really matters, I guess. Yeah. So yeah.
One of the ways that I level set my perspective is I think about something that was just crushing, just a crushing anxiety or just crushing fear throughout my life. And I think back to those times now, if I'm facing something today, I think back about those times today, and I'm like, can I even place where I was? Can I even measure the fear level or the anxiety level? Can I even comprehend how awful that time was? And the answer is usually no, I cannot. It feels like a blip on the radar, like a fraction of time. And I can't even, because as you know, those things, they work out.
They pass.
One way or the other, they pass. Whatever the outcome may be. Sickness of a loved one, or an injury, or an exam, or something that at certain stages of life, like a broken relationship. Like, how are we going to get through this? You look back and you think, man, oh man. Yeah, I mean, I know of course I was afraid. I can remember, of course I would have been afraid about that. But that level is just so small with the time that has passed, because what you realize is God was there, and we made it through, whatever the outcome was.
I like this conversation because what I hear is like the three big things that you point to for working through your fear and anxiety. Because I'd say yours is remember, which is the most common word in the Bible that God tells us is remember, remember, remember. Because one of the things to overcome fear and anxiety is to look in the past and be like, he had me then, he had me then, he had me then. So I can have faith that he's got me now. Yeah. And with Brady, I think it's trust that, you just gotta hop in the pool. You just gotta jump, and you just gotta trust. And that's a hard one, but that's one of the ways that you can go through fear is like, I trust in the promises of God. Like it's not gonna all blow up in my face. Like I just gotta trust. And then with me, I think it's I would describe my response to fear as a eternal perspective. When I start feeling fear creep in or anxiety, I immediately downplay whatever it is that's bothering me. Kind of like you said, like, this is not that big of a deal. Like, in the scheme of things, this, like, and I say that all the time. Like, 5 years from now, I am not even going to remember whether I did this or this. Or, and that just level sets me where I don't even... like that eternal perspective of like, this really doesn't matter. Yeah.
Zoom out.
Right.
And know that that no matter what comes of it, because things that we have fear about, things that we worry about, that does happen. They do blow up in our face at times.
Yeah.
But if you zoom out and have an eternal perspective of, okay, that might be all consuming and it might be really awful, but
what does it matter?
Yeah, in if I'm zooming out and having my mind on things of God and His promise and assurance, expectant hope, I know this is a temporary place, this is a temporary world, this is a temporary situation, but He already won the battle.
Yeah.
And so no matter what comes, to have that trust.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, kind of like you.
Absolutely.
There's been times I'm behind on something at work, or like there's a sermon and I don't, it's like Saturday night and I'm like, I don't like it. Like it's just not.
Gotta start over.
Yeah, and I've done that plenty of times. Yeah. And then like I'll zoom out and be like, you know what? Like this one sermon, 10 years from now, I'm not even going to remember I did it. 5 years from now, nobody's going to even remember I did it. Probably a month from now, nobody's going to remember.
Yeah, I mean, really about 10 minutes in, people stop paying attention anyway. So,
and all of a sudden, I just kind of level set myself of like, kind of like you said in sermon, like I am not that big of it, because it is pride. It's pride.
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting about your sermon is at the root of everything is sin in some way, shape, or form. And it's pride going, no, I have to be the best. I have to be, like they have to walk out saying this was the best one ever. And that's pride. Or that's, making an idol out of what they think. And I love that you were honest and vulnerable about that, because I fall prey to that all the time. I make an idol out of what they think. And I have to check myself on that of like, no, did I preach the word? Okay. Then at the end of the day, whether this was a B or a C or an A sermon, not my job.
Well, and you've alluded to this several times, that the Holy Spirit uses you, and what people gather, remember, hear even from you on a Sunday morning is not always what you actually said.
No.
Right.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time. They come out and they're like, man, that was powerful. I'm like, great. Not what I said, but awesome.
Yeah. I'll take it.
One of the cool things that I took away too is there's so many sweet people in our church. Like they'd come out like, Brady, we do like you. They'd pat me on the shoulder and just say, I was like, oh, thanks. But the mentality of like, hey, we all want you to do well too. I can't even remember who came and told me that a couple of weeks ago. Like, hey, just remember, we want you to do well too. Like we're kind of in this together. Like I think you get up there and it's like, hey, I'm here to perform for you, and if I don't do a good job, you're like mad at me or something. But it's like, hey, we're in this together. We all want it to go well. Like, so it's kind of, there's a little bit of freedom in there. Yeah.
So don't blow it.
Yeah. That's how the conversation ended. So don't blow it.
Yeah.
No, I loved 2 weeks ago when you talked about, not feeling enough, and all the people that came out were like, Brady, you're enough.
Yeah, they're like pumping me up after.
I loved
like all of a sudden, that's when I'm going to deliver sermons just to get tire pumps.
That's right.
Sometimes I don't like my hair very much. Like, your hair's great. Look at your hair. You look so handsome.
And then your daughters are like, yeah, you're balding.
I wasn't talking about me. I was using Brady. I don't preach, right? So I don't preach. Why don't I preach? Because, you.
No. That's cute.
No, you gave that online message for Lent.
Yeah, you did.
About like gratitude and thankfulness.
Advent.
Yeah.
Gratitude. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And
yeah, I remember thinking, where is this going?
Yeah, wow, he's meandering. I mean, it's just pretty easy, Aaron. We gave you one topic, gratitude. Just go to the Bible, look in there. All kinds of stuff about gratitude in there.
Hey, you did a good job.
That was cool.
You should think about ministry.
I really should.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Okay, but be honest. Watching, you've got a front row seat for Sean and Brady doing SMP. Like, is that still something that's on your heart to do?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Because I know if people listen to this, they're going to be like, Pastor Justin, like, why are we not?
Why are we doing it?
Yeah. And I want to be clear.
Yeah.
Aaron now on this side of things is like, I'm good.
Yeah. No, I'm.
Yeah. First for the record.
about time to sunset this experience. I'm getting pretty long in the day for old Aaron.
Hey, the majority of my class are like retired second career guys.
Yeah.
Are they my age?
Beyond, yeah.
Beyond?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And they have such incredible wisdom to share.
Sure.
I love being in class with those guys.
Oh, I'm sure.
And the stories they tell, like, sometimes we're just rolling because, like, there's a few guys that are just incredible storytellers, and it's like, man, you've lived a lot of life. And, like, yeah it's awesome, yeah.
In 1941.
I remember the Great War. That's what we called it.
Yeah, they're not that far back, but yeah. But,
Okay.
yeah.
Korea.
Before Aaron's songs on Sunday, he's going to be like, I just want to say I'm really nervous to sing this song, so please just let me know if I do a good job.
Yeah. I just am afraid that my voice is kind of scratchy today.
Aaron, you're amazing.
You're amazing. Oh. How could you ever doubt yourself?
That's what your mom's for. She does that every week.
Yeah, and that's what my wife's for, to counter that.
Oh, she is your biggest fan.
No.
Yes, she is. You give
No,
her
my
a hard
mom
time.
is.
Your mom is your biggest fan, yes. Yeah.
That's
I love
awesome.
her for it.
It's awesome.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I loved that a couple of weeks ago when your daughters were dissing you. She's
Oh,
like,
dude.
your father is so handsome.
Oh, they are ruthless.
He
They are ruthless. Ruthless. They're just like their mother. Brady and I had just a brief interaction in the office this past week about the upcoming message and his natural concerns. I mean, one thing I'll say about Brady, I'll say lots of things, but the one thing I'm going to say right now is that he doesn't hide his vulnerabilities.
No, I think that's huge.
You know what I mean? Like you don't just sit back and maybe that's different for you today than it was some years ago. Mm-hmm. But when you're insecure about something, like you're not afraid to say, I'm struggling because I'm just having insecurities. And that's whether that's a 1-to-1 or if it's a 1-to congregation.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to call it out because just like Pastor, like we've talked about in counseling and in therapy, when a counselor just allows you to speak the thoughts in your head, a lot of times you say those things and you're like, okay, if that's how I'm feeling and I've said it out loud, I understand that's just not real. And so I appreciate that about you, your just ability to be like, I am struggling with this. Mm-hmm. And then I think my response to you was, Brady, you just can't care what people think about you. You just
That's right. Yeah,
great
advice.
Who cares? Well, because
That's
are
helpful.
the worst.
In some scenarios, that would be helpful because I think you make an idol of it. Like
of what
it's
other
like,
people think.
Oh, yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
think, but to your point, like you were concerned about saying something that people would be offended by, like giving an example and a message about fear and anxiety or worry that somebody would take so personally that they would be like, how dare you? And of course my response to you was, well, good. If that's how they feel, then you were probably you needed to say it and needed to be heard.
Yeah.
No, you had a tough balance to try and do. Like, how do you think you did?
I mean, I think overall the thing I worry about in that situation is to get someone in that position where they can't hear anything else. Like it's like they're so turned off and offended that it's like nothing else.
At what?
Like sinks in.
So they understand.
I mean,
what
I
your
think
challenge was.
I think anxiety is just a big topic, and there are a lot of people that struggle with it for a lot of different reasons, and there are just naturally people that are more susceptible to it for different brain chemistry, and I mean, there's a lot of research that has come out about anxiety and stuff like that, and so I didn't want to pile on because typically those are the people that are most vulnerable and like hurt and broken, and it's like I don't want to pile onto them like, hey, it's your sin that's doing this, like
kick them all
like
down.
How
just
dare you?
pick yourself up, like and so I don't know, I hope I try to give that kind of disclaimer at the beginning that like I totally understand that there's these other factors and sometimes medications and therapy and counseling. These are gifts that God has given us to wade through this issue. But we can also agree that there's sin at the root of these issues too. Like we can't discount that spiritual battle that's going on. And so, yeah, I mean, hopefully we were able to do that. I mean, no matter.
So this is what the podcast is for, though. So speak to each extreme. If someone did walk out of your sermon going, how dare he kick me while I'm down? What is your response to that?
I mean, that's a good question. I think you would approach that as just, hey, I hear you. Like, I totally understand that struggle is real for you, and there's no intention to try to heap on or pile on to that. But I think it's important to see the things that change is never comfortable. Being confronted by things that we might be able to change into our lives is never comfortable. And so I think sometimes the danger is that we could use that as a crutch of like, well, like it's just me. Like there's nothing I can do about it. Right. Like just get, if I don't like a pill's the only thing that'll help me. Like, and those things are needed at times, but I don't want it to be an excuse to not do the work of digging into that sin that might be in our lives too. Because I mean, everything you look at, there's a spiritual battle aspect, and like you said, there's sin. and something you talked to me about this week too is sin's not always something that we intentionally do. Sometimes sin is an effect that happens to us. That like all of creation, every aspect of us, like sin has corrupted it. And so I think it's important to just kind of bring that truth out, that the reason things are not the way that we think they should be is because sin is here. And just that I think there's a need to speak into that and recognize that that's part of the issue. So
I used to, much like you, I think, I used to struggle mightily with anxiety. Like debilitating, couldn't get out of bed, anxiety. And if I were to place myself there, what I would think I wouldn't receive well. Someone say, hey, no need to worry. No need to worry. It's going to work out. It's going to be okay. You're worrying about nothing. They say something about, anxiety or worrying about something is dying 1,000 deaths, before you would even die one, because you might be worrying about something that never happens, and that was the case for me. I was extremely anxious over things that could happen, and I couldn't get out of it. Just couldn't get out of it. And going back to that little mini message about gratitude, that was one of the things that helped to pull me out of that, was to every morning take account of all of the blessings in my life, all the good things, in addition to things in the past that God saw me through. But to really take account of all that I have, and then balance that anxiety about what was to come with all that I have now. And that slowly started to turn the tide of I can't function because of this anxiety that I have, this worry, to, okay, I think I can, it's one step forward, one day, focus on the blessings, focus on the good, and be grateful for those things. And then give the rest to God. Like he says, take up my yoke. My burden is light. Give it to him. Focus on the good. Give it to him. Because the funny thing, in Pastor, going back to your thing of like when you would feel that anxiety, be like, oh, stop, I'm checking out, and that would, for me, that would just pile up the anxiety. I would just feel like, oh wait, so I didn't do anything about it today either. Oh, I didn't do anything about it tomorrow either. I didn't, as opposed to get some balance, recognize what God has done and is doing, and will certainly do. Remember. And then take a step forward, take some action, take some action. And,
Yeah, I think everybody needs to respond differently. And what I appreciate about what Brady said is, like, no matter who you are, no matter if it's Because I think the two challenges were you didn't want someone to check out at the beginning because they were like, yep, that's me. I'm one of the chemical ones, or so like I don't need to work on this. Like that's just me. Because you want to be like, oh no, like everyone needs to find a way to work against this. Like this is not how God wants you to live. And then you don't want to the other extreme of the person that's like, I am underwater here, and I feel like you're lobbing more onto me, like and I think that's where I loved your analogy of the weightlifter. I think that was just such a beautiful analogy of because I see those videos too of the bar is like literally bending on those dude's shoulders, which is just unbelievable to me that can be that heavy and they can do that.
Those videos of me.
But just that idea of literally God the Father sitting there like piling on, give me another plate, give me another, like he does not stop saying, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, I'll carry it for you. That everybody needs to have that kind of hope. Everybody needs to, whatever battle they're in, understand that, because I think with a lot of mental battles, there are people out there that, and I'm not trying to knock the profession, but there are some therapists or counselors out there. I mean, they make their living by you continuing to come to them. That's just a reality. They do want to help, and I'm not trying to knock the profession, but I do think there is, in some way, shape, or form, kind of this cycle that happens with repeated counseling, where you just kind of accept the thoughts in your head.
Yeah, I'm broken. This is just the way I am.
I'm broken. Where you just kind of accept it rather than say, this is something I can not necessarily be healed from, but that is possible. There are people that are healed from anxiety and depression and fear, but it can be better. It can be better. And I just want to put that challenge out to you. If that's you, it can be better. And there is hope. And there is truth in what Brady preached on, that start examining those couple questions, those couple sins, and see how maybe those things are playing out in your life. And you might feel some of that burden come off. And practice doing what Brady said of giving it to God. Like God wants to take that on. And you ended the sermon with talking about I don't understand all the big words you said about the brain and the Abdullah Amugada and all that, but that literally it can impact your brain, the way that you respond to these things, and you can change, and there is hope, and it can get better. But one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Brady, and you too, Aaron, from your time, you brought it up, Aaron. What, Brady, do you think are things that other people can say to you in those times of fear and anxiety that are helpful, and what is not helpful? Because like we have one of our children. Can't speak today.
One of our childs.
One of our childs. One of my chitlins, who does get really fearful and stuff like that. And I have found that I don't always say the right thing at the right time. But I mean, it got really, at one point, this was like a year or two ago, she had choked on food, and we had to help her, get it out. And then she wouldn't eat for a week. We couldn't get her to eat, and one day of it, 2 days, I start getting, trying to respond the way I would respond. And as you're pointing out, not everybody responds to fear and anxiety the same way. And so what are things that you have found that help you, that other people can say, or what would be advice if someone's like, my kid goes through this. What do I say to them? How do I coach them through this?
Yeah. I think that's a tough thing, because I kind of agree with Aaron too. I think there's been a lot of harm done by people to say, your faith just needs to be stronger. If you just had stronger faith, you wouldn't be worried about all this. And I think that can kind of, that can cause a lot of damage to just put it that way. And so I honestly don't know if there's specific words, but one thing that we talk a lot, like with the Stephen Ministry group and all that, like just the power of presence, just your support of that person in that moment, to kind of walk beside them and like, hey, like, I'm here. I understand that you're afraid. Like, because I think that kind of like that snap out of it, or like, oh, come on, like, that's silly. Like, you shouldn't be scared of that, because that's in that moment, that's so real for that person. Like, that fear is real. Like, that thing that they're afraid of is real to them too. And so I don't know. I think every person's different. I don't know if there's like specific words that work in all situations, but I think more than anything, it's just like that time to take a step back and like walk beside them through it. Like, hey, like, let's talk about this. Like, let's, what are you afraid about? Ask more questions. Like, try to get them to kind of work through it themselves. Because from experience too, like in those moments, like, it is so hard to snap out of your like fearful and anxious thoughts. Like, you want to so badly, like, you want nothing more than to just be done with this, but it's like, it's so hard to let go of it. I don't know how to even describe it, but yeah, I think just that someone to walk beside you and say like, you're like, I hear where you're coming from. Like, that was a scary situation. Like, I can see why this would cause some fear, but let's kind of talk through it a little bit. And so I think it's just that approach of like, I'm here. I want to listen to what you have to say, and I want to remind you of some of those maybe promises of God, or whatever it might be, that you can kind of encourage them in that way too. So I don't know if Aaron, maybe you have some better thoughts on like specific words to say, but
yeah, one of the things that we actually, this is a conference we went to a couple of years ago. One of the things they cautioned against was trying to solve the problem for them instantly. Like, oh, well, it's fine. Mm-hmm. It's this. It's just that. They use the depiction of somebody being stuck in the bottom of a well, and mm-hmm. dark, and alone, and not being able to get themselves out of it. And so then you come along and you look down at the bottom of the well. You're like, what are you doing down there? You shouldn't be down there. You shouldn't be down there. Get out of there. Come on, mm-hmm. get out. Mm-hmm. That was the analogy they used. And what they encouraged instead was to climb down that well and sit with them. And so I think about that often. I think about just being present, mm-hmm. listening, being close, not even having to verbally reassure, but just physically reassure them. Like, I'm here. Mm-hmm. I'm here. I'm sitting right here with you. And I'm listening. And so whatever things are running through your head that are causing this damage, that are causing this anxiety and this sadness or this worry or this fear, like, you can speak them to me. You can trust me. I'm going to listen. And just to be present and listen and take that time, as much time as they need. Because I know that you've both experienced this when somebody's really in a state. Like, they're going to blast it out. They're going to blast it out. Mm-hmm. And then at some point in time, they're going to be like, they're going to exhale. They might be exhausted from that experience. They're going to take a breath and be like, okay. And you're still there. Mm-hmm. For kids, I think the same thing, but also reassuring them, affirming them in ways you say, hey, I, as your father, I love you no matter what. There's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you're going to go through that's going to change how I love you, no matter what. Same with your mother. So start with that just sort of gentle reassurance that you're always going to be there for them in a way that's loving and supportive and caring, no matter what they're facing, what they're experiencing. And then you can start to point up. Be like, see, I'm never going to leave you. I'm never going to not love you. Just as God is never going to leave us, and he's never going to stop loving us. And point to those promises. To give a kid more of that eternal perspective, I mean, that's hard. Mm-hmm. But to use your love for them, your support, your care, your concern for them as a physical example right in front of them. without trying just to solve the problem. Because I know, especially with like my teenage girls, it's really difficult for them to be like, well, you don't understand. Like they'll say, you don't understand, So if I just try to, and I'm guilty of this all the time, where I'm trying to just jump in and solve it. Like I'm having trouble with this kid because I'm like, well, what you should do, as opposed to, okay, just I'm here, just talk to me, talk me through it,
Yeah.
and then just reassure him, hey, I'm really sorry you're going through that. That sounds extremely difficult, but just know you can always talk to me. I'm always going to be here, and I love you. And then you can start to point to the blessings in their life to kind of build them up, to be like, okay, look all you have. Let's just take account of the things that are blessings in your life, the things that are good in your life, and start to build that account up to balance out that worry, that fear, that anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the kids are a good example of like you're talking about. Like I know with my girls, they're younger still, but she called me this name or she said something, and my first response has always been like, well, you don't have to listen to what she says. Like just don't listen to her. But
punch her in the mouth.
But I found that it works much better to say, man, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like and just kind of work through them that way, and it diffuses the situation within seconds versus like, oh, well, just stop listening to her. Like, oh, don't even, I yell up at her like, why'd you say that? Or just like, yeah, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like what you're saying, like just show them you're there first of all, and like within seconds, a lot of times it's the issue's over, and they're fine at that point. So,
if it's like just like a relational thing between siblings or even like friends. Like, oh, my friend said this, or I heard they were saying something behind my back, those things are a little more easily navigated with just that, just like letting them get it out, because they'll be onto something.
Yeah,
there'll be something for them to get onto, soon enough. Yeah, but it's hard, especially with kids. I know you guys feel this way. I'll never forget when Logan was in preschool. They were playing, like there were some boys playing with something, and he in his very 60-year-old man way says, hello, may I play with you? And they're like, no. And he's like, and then they spit at me, and I was like filled with rage. Like my firstborn son is being spit at and disrespected, and so I lost my mind. I lost it. I was like, next time that happens, I lost it. And I could see him getting upset because of how upset I was. Like he was reflecting my energy at that point in time. And I was like, okay, very sorry I said that. Didn't mean any of it. I'm sorry that happened to you. One of the circumstances that we've had with one of our kids is a lot of anxiety. Pastor, just like yours, or maybe not just like, but in a way that is difficult to navigate. And I realized that it wasn't just how I would respond to something she would bring to me, but it was really more like the energy I was bringing to any situation. Like, okay, maybe I should not drive as fast as I drive. Maybe I should not speak at the level I'm speaking, in certain circumstances. Maybe I just calm it down a little bit. Bring some calm to the car. Bring some calm to the house. Because that may have had some kind of an impact on just the level of anxiety that she was experiencing. And so I had to be and same with my wife. She's like, how I interact with them on a daily basis, I need to step back and take a look at that and address it and change it. Because it was a really serious situation that we were in, and we had no answers. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what she was experiencing. Nobody could tell us. Okay, let's just control what we can control. And what we can control is providing some calm to this home. And, whether or not that had an impact, who knows? But it was something that we could actually do. Just like sitting with somebody in their desperation. You can sit with somebody in their desperation. You can listen. You can take it, So yeah, just that level of craziness in a world where you're kind of running from one thing to the next and trying to get there, and you're late, and the schedules are tight. It's like, it's okay. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to put all that energy into this situation for my kids' sake,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it was a very good series, to talk about just our mental health. And I think it's something that is important for the church to talk about. I think it's one of the biggest crises we have in our society. Is just people's mental health is not as healthy as it should be, like, and all those different things. I think each sermon, I think it's something that you can come back to. And I can say that because we didn't invent any of this stuff. We read multiple books to kind of inspire this series. And so we took wisdom from people that know more than we do. And that's all we're trying to do always, is take this information that we have and give it to people in a way that allows God to move in their life. And so I think this series really was special. And my encouragement is, don't just be hearers of the word, be doers. Like, whatever you're going through mentally, it can get better. It doesn't have to be that way. Like little things like Brady was saying in his sermon last time, like, you're not a victim of your thoughts. You don't have to believe the lies. You can, like, you don't have to be in fear and anxiousness all the time. In my third sermon on like reframing the past and, looking for his goodness, like there are real tools and mindsets that you can implement in your life, and it will change things for you. And so I just encourage you to really take to heart the things, because we worked really hard on this. I mean, like, we work hard on every series, but like there was a lot of extra reading going into this. There was a lot of extra time, and so yeah, please use this opportunity to grow. And in the meantime, in Brady's sermon 2 weeks ago, he talked about one of the biggest things is to have people in your corner and people that can encourage you. And our church is so huge on that. We have counselors that are free, that are ready to walk with you through these things. That we call them our Stephen ministers. But you can talk to Brady about that. He's the head of our care ministry, and he can assign you with somebody. And we even, for people that can't afford it, we help people with counseling with professional counselors, financially. We want to make sure you get the help you need. And so if there's anything that you're going through, we're always here. I'm always here. Aaron even, some people connect with Aaron better, and Aaron meets with people to encourage them through things. And so that's why we're here, and we want you to take advantage of that.
Thanks to both of you for all of the efforts that you put into this past month and these messages, and how difficult some of them were to deliver. But I do believe that there will be a lot of good that comes from it, and if nothing else, just people can take a tidbit, here and there from what you all gave, and yeah, Pastor, we're blessed with a lot of resources in this church. So thankful for that. Thankful for you guys.
On to Nehemiah.
Let's go.
Here we go.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh boy, this coming message, timely.
Yep.
No spoiler alerts. All right. God bless everybody.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you guys.
Bye, Buzzies.